Phosphor Dot friends, Earl at thelogbook.com. We're back on the Atari 2600. We couldn't avoid it forever. Let's actually talk about Atari's Pac-Man for the 2600. This game has taken a lot of crap over the years. It's taken a lot of heat for many people perceiving it to be less than faithful to the arcade game, when in fact it's working within some specific parameters. Atari was unwilling to splash out for, partly because of the deadline that they wanted this game done within. They were unwilling to spend enough for cartridges that would do extended bank switching, which was a method of programming a game that was in frequent use later in the system's life, also about now too, but especially after the kind of backlash to this game, bank switching allowed you to write a larger program but kind of carve it up into different sections, and so the cartridge would literally switch between different banks of code to execute the entire program. That was bank switching. This game didn't do that, suffice to say. And because it cost extra money and extra memory, the memory did cost something. So anytime there was a cartridge that featured bank switching, that was an added expense. Atari wanted this done on an incredibly tight deadline to get it out to the stores, and they just didn't want to mess with the bank switching, and so Todd Fry had to fit this into a very small chunk of code. And here's the thing, there were so many games at the time that were, shall we say, Pac-Man play-alikes. In the arcade you had stuff like, the Piranha Pac-Man, the Popeye Pac-Man. You had games that did actually kind of start from scratch and tried to differentiate from Pac-Man just a little bit, like Ladybug, or Make Tracks, or Mousetrap. If you have room in your heart for both of those kind of games, which personally I do, then there's no point in slagging off Todd Fry's Pac-Man. He did what he could with the time and resources allocated to him, and that's the job. That's the job. And he did his job. And I think because a lot of people perhaps inherited the cartridge without the instructions, they were not aware of all of the variations that were available, some of which are actually quite challenging. You see that I've selected Game 6, which this is kind of the most difficult variation on the cartridge. The basic Variation 1, which is if you plug the cartridge in and hit the button and start the game, you're playing Variation 1. It's the slowest, and it doesn't really have the danger of the arcade game. Variation 6, well, let's see what happens. Squeaker, that was close. Doesn't mean I can't clean their clocks, but it just makes it more difficult. Oh. Misread that room. Alright. Let's get that part of the maze cleared out and never go back there again. Ah, whiffed it. Yay, fruit. Or, you know, just another kind of wafer. As I believe the instructions called it. It's a wafer. Alright, we are out of energizers. We are in deep trouble. Okay. Whew. Okay, so if you play the proper variation and not, I believe the packaging called it the packaging showed a teddy bear, which meant there was a children's variation. That was most frequently, the base variation of the game upon loading a cartridge. If you're playing the watered-down version of the game, yeah, of course you're going to have a less than optimal experience. That being said, I'm still having, an optimal experience getting eaten. Which is a thing I think I'll be repeating if I don't get out of that corner. Alright, it all comes down to this. Let's clear out the mostly empty portions of the maze and get eaten. Okay. Alright, I just got my butt handed to me by Atari 2600 Pac-Man. See, if you play the correct variation and not the watered-down kids variation, it's a game. It's playable. There is some real danger to you, even if you are an experienced Pac-Man player. And that makes it, that's kind of cool. The fact that they included kids variations, that was very good of them. I think that was a big part of the success of the 2600 was you knew that when you loaded the cartridge in, that base variation was going to be, shall we say, less challenging. But, alright, so let's discuss it from an audio-visual perspective. Yeah, okay, not good. We have traded in one of the jauntiest, most recognizable theme songs in the history of video games for Pac-Man Dials a Touch-Tone Phone. Again, since Atari did not want to splash out for a bank-switching cartridge to maximize their profits, which everyone was going to buy this anyway, they still would have made some major bank if they had spent the money on a bank-switching cartridge. I'll never understand it. I'll never understand it. It seems so ridiculous that they thought, hey, we've got to, unless, of course, the company already knew it was in trouble financially, which is entirely possible. But they knew they were going to clean up with this, so why not make it good? Why not give Todd Fry the resources and the time he needed to make it good? I think we would have gotten a better game, and there have been hacks. There have been hacks based on the Ms. Pac-Man cartridge that show how Pac-Man could have been done on cartridge in a small space and still have been good, even on the 2600. Maybe we'll play one of those hacks one of these days. For what it was, and for the draconian limitations imposed on the programmer, it actually could have been a lot worse. And I think that's the reality check a lot of people need to get. This was not the worst game on the 2600. You know what? E.T. was also not the worst game on the 2600. Hello, Mythicon has entered the chat. Say no more. the games that people frequently lambast as being the worst on this platform usually weren't the worst. They were just the most well-circulated, that got widely panned for audiovisual shortcomings or gameplay shortcomings, or just the fact that people didn't understand them. Which isn't really fair to the people who made the game. We're trying their best. Nobody sets out to make something suck. Except maybe Mythicon. But more on them later.